Hello and a very warm welcome to Insight. I'm Amandra Bhatt. Today we talk about an urgent issue of the past few weeks, the rupee's current free fall and its implications for the economy as it fell to a new low of 61.21 against the dollar on Monday, prompting the RBI to come to its rescue. Remember, the rupee has depreciated almost 13% since May and is the worst performing currency in Asia. In the course of next 60 minutes or so, we look at some of the reasons behind the rupee's free fall and its implications for the Indian economy. And to talk about the slide in the rupee, we are joined in our studios by three distinguished guests. Please welcome Mr. Prakash Chawla, Senior Journalist, PTI. Welcome to Insight, Mr. Chawla. Sitting next to him is Dr. Yamini Agarwal, a Professor and Vice Chairperson, Indian Institute of Finance. Welcome to Insight, Dr. Agarwal. And we are also joined by Shantanu Guhare, Senior Journalist, India Editor, Central European News. Welcome to Insight, Mr. Guhare. Mr. Chawla, I'd like to begin with you. Before we come to the implications of the falling rupee on the Indian economy, let's look at some of the causes behind it. What do you think would be the foremost reasons? Can we attribute it to global factors, as the government says?
Well, mainly yes, because there's a flight of capital from what are known as the emerging markets, including India, back to the US. So that has been one of the main reasons for the pressure on rupee. So it is not, as is being made out. Of course, there are internal problems that we have, but it is not all the internal problems. The main problem at this point of time, the immediate reason is the flight of capital into back to the US bond market, back to the US assets.
Okay.
And that is the main reason. That's a lot of outflow is going from the emerging markets, including India. That's one of the main reasons. The other reason, of course, is the way we fund our what is known as the current account deficit. Structurally, there is a problem because we have come to depend on the hot money so much. Hot money, I mean to say the money which comes into the financial market, stock market,
right,
by way of financial institutional investors. So that's a hot money. It can shift overnight. So structurally, there is a problem, because we come to depend too much on the FII's hot money for financing, bridging the gap in our current account deficit. And the third reason is a huge trade deficit, which is close to about $190 billion. And this year it might even cross $200 billion. So we have a huge, and there's a problem that how do we finance this? And we are a net import-driven economy. So our gap is about $200 billion.
Right.
So when we are a net importer economy, the impact is huge on everybody, on a common man, on a business, across the board, because we are a net import-driven economy. That's the main problem.
Right.
And these are the main immediate reasons. Internal problem, because there's a huge trade deficit, close to $190 billion in the last fiscal. This year it might be even $200 billion. We have the flight of capital back to the US from the emerging market. We had a good party last year, mind you. We had a good party last year, but party has to be over. It can't go on. So structurally there is a problem.
Okay.
There is a internal problem, and then we have not really depended too much on the what is called the safe money, the foreign direct investment, the investment by the NRIs.
Right.
So that kind of, and then we have not really pushed exports to the extent we should have done.
Okay, we will talk about the steps the government and the RBI can take to address this problem. But you're saying there are global factors at play, but there are also internal problems, structural problems that make us vulnerable. Dr. Yamini Agarwal, how do you look at the current situation?
See, the current situation is a coupled effect of what is going on internationally and what is going on internally. We are at one of the lowest growth rate levels presently of the last entire last decade, which is about 5% of GDP. And we have been trying to motivate either the industry, the agriculture and the services sector to grow at a faster pace. Even the 12th Finance Commission, the 12th Planning Commission report says that we're looking at a growth rate of 8%. So from 8% we have dropped down to 5%. Right. An IIP index of about 2.3% for the April month. Now these are factors which do not promote or give confidence in our economy. What has further also happened is that internationally the markets have not really improved very much. Whether it is in the US, the recession continues to be there, unemployment continues to be there, other difficulties continue to be there. The European zone, though, has stabilized, but it has not recovered completely. So they have a lot of internal problems over there. As regards the other Asian economies, whether it is China or others, we are doing fairly well, because if you look at Russia, it is growing at about 4% to 5%. So we are also growing at 5%. So when you look at international factors and internal factors together, the fall of the rupee seems to be close. Another important aspect which I feel is the the reason why the rupee is drifting so much is primarily because the government has been unable to communicate confidence, or let's say a policy framework, to the international investors, whether it is with respect to the Vodafone case, whether it is with respect to the Walmart case, whether it is with respect to the IKEA case. Where are they giving a clear-cut indication that we want you to be here? Even the Jet Etihad deal, it is seeing a lot of difficulties. So the foreign investors are not very sure whether they should continue standing invested here or not. So these are a few things which I feel is causing the rupee to drift.
But FDI in retail is now a reality. Do you think it's going to take some time to show effect?
Yes, but let the foreign investors believe that they should be welcomed by the government. There should not be stances given by different authorities in the government to have different stands. Even when an agreement has gone by, they should allow that agreement to proceed. Why should there be any hiccups from the government side? Let there be a single window framework. Once you are clear, you are clear. You know that I am moving ahead. I'm not going back to the deal. So the government needs to give a clear-cut stance for that. I believe that kind of a communication has not gone. Though it is always in good interest that things are taken care of from the different departments and everything is looked upon, but the investors need to know where they stand.
Mr. Guhare, many are saying that the current slide of the rupee has resulted from fears that foreign investors would exit emerging economies because they would want to invest in the US, which is now showing signs of recovery. Do you think that is the problem? Because there is a problem globally. Emerging economies have witnessed similar slides in their currencies.
So the rupee has been down for the last 9 weeks. And in Asia, the rupee is the worst performer. And also the fact that indecisiveness on the part of the government has added fuel to the fire. If you notice the RBI governor's statement last week, and he said there is no target for India's currency, that immediately tanked the market. What I'm trying to explain here is, we are an import heavy nation, so obviously we depend on a lot of dollars to buy stuff. If the dollar is going high, that means I'm spending more money than what I'm earning. A lot of issues have happened, a lot of stuffs have happened which we have to spend more money. Let's say oil. We are a hugely, heavily oil import country. The Brent has been on a 3-month high, more than a 3-month high.
Right.
So obviously, it is impacting our economy very badly. As Dr. Agarwal rightly said, the government hasn't taken any proactive steps to assure global investors that whenever you come in, we could clear your proposal fast and work can happen. The latest issue is the Jet Etihad deal. Now, whether it was a 48-hour issue which the newspapers are highlighting that the deal was pushed through as if there was a huge rush, or whether there are other issues to that which probably more investigations can bring it out, somewhere it shows that nobody took the deal very seriously except those involved in it. And as a result, the deal is now completely stuck. Now the PMO has gone in, and there are chances that even the courts might get in there. What kind of a signal it sends to places like Abu Dhabi in UAE at a time when the government is looking for sovereign foreign funds? When you look for those funds which are funds backed by governments, that means you're going to their country and saying you must come and invest. Chidambaram is going to Abu Dhabi and UAE next week. If he goes there, I think one of the biggest questions he will face is, how could you not clear the Jet Etihad deal? Now see the predicament. See the situation where we are stuck today. I mean, here the prices of vegetables are rising.
Right.
We have not been able to take a call on the middlemen who take nearly 60% of the cut. The same soil, same fertilizer, same rain, same gods and the same sun, but somewhere the prices have been going up because there are massive hoardings all around. So it is all impacting our economy. There is a huge global factor, there's no doubt about it, that the US is trying to now squeeze it up and trying to take back money.
Right.
Which, okay, But our own economy is in total shambles. Even if USA bails us out, there are chances that we will still falter because we haven't taken in the last 1 or 2 years any proactive step, any major project that actually says it has gone off the ground, work has happened, recruitments have started, and hopefully in a year's time things will happen. So it's a very bleak situation. So that's all adding up to impact the rupee. It's a worst performer. 9 weeks have passed, is continuously sliding against the dollar.
Right.
And it is a very, very precarious situation.
So you're saying it's not just FIIs
No, not just
accelerating their
FIIs.
pullout.
FIIs have often come in like what Prakash said, hot money, cold money.
Right.
They come in, they move on. That's what all happens. It's just like Indians taking money out of Swiss bank, going to Virgin Island, going to Cayman Islands and all of that. That kind of shift always happens. They bring the money back to FII. That kind of stuff happens. But internally, the economy is in a very precarious condition. Look at the conflict, or look at the loggerheads at the FM and the RBI governor is. Each one is trying to counter each other. I mean, how could an RBI governor give a statement saying the bank doesn't have a time frame for the currency? The bank is the only one. It has to set a time frame for the currency.
Okay, we'll talk about the role of the RBI, the steps it could take to support our currency. But Mr. Chawla, how do you look at the way the overall economy is doing? Because on the one hand, we are seeing inflation has fallen, our fiscal deficit has also gone down, but it coincides with the slide in the rupee, the falling growth. Then how do you look at the overall situation?
Actually, so far as the inflation is concerned, it is not clear that inflation is falling, because at the retail level, at the consumer level, inflation is pretty high, and it's really pinching, it's really biting him. So there is no way to suggest, excepting maybe the May month figure of the WPI,
right,
which is a misnomer. You take a look at the consumer price index and you take a round of the vegetable markets, you take a round of the edible oil prices, you take a of cereal prices. So inflation is not at all down. Here is a deadly combination. You have a deadly combination of growth faltering and inflation not really refusing to go down.
Right.
So to that extent, we are in a bad situation. So economy, industrial production is down, consumer confidence is down, and I want to say something when it comes to bashing the government vis-a-vis the policy issues. It has become a fashion to always blame the government because Walmart is not coming, because the government is not coming. Now tell me, they want a clarity. The policy was announced that 30% of you guys have to do 30% of the sourcing from MSMEs. Policy is out, notified. Now, what more clarity you want? Problem is, you don't want to source from MSMEs. You don't want to do it from MSMEs and then blame it on the government. That's not fair on the part of the investors.
Okay.
It's very easy to blame the government.
Okay.
Here, then they again go to Udyog Bhavan.
Okay, so you're saying there has been no mismanagement?
I'm not saying that. I'm not giving clean sheet to the government either. What I'm suggesting, it is not fair to always blame the government.
Okay.
But I think the retail point, one point, sorry for interjecting. Sure. One of the biggest problems of retail was the delay in taking the call. It went on and on. And
but having done that, then what stops you now? Problem, I'll tell you what the reason is. The reason is there is no investment appetite. The investor also knows it at the ground reality. So he doesn't want to take a call. Interest rates are so high. He doesn't want to take a risk. What is known as the risk aversion.
Okay.
There's a risk aversion, and easy to blame the government.
All right. Well, we'll have Dr. Yamini Agarwal also respond to that in just a bit. We have to take a break in the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
आज मैं आपसे एक जरूरी बात कहने आया। इन तस्वीरों को देखिए।
मैं बार बार क्यों बीमार पड़ती हूँ? मुझको स्कूल में सब बुद्धू बुद्धू बोलते रहते हैं। मैं रल्ले में भागता हूँ ना तो थक जाता हूँ।
ये सब कुपोषण के लक्षण हो सकते हैं, लेकिन कुपोषण से बचा जा सकता है अगर हम 4 बातों का ध्यान रखें। 1. गर्भवती को खाना अच्छा मिलना चाहिए, सामान्य से 1/4 ज्यादा। 2. माँ का पहला गाढ़ा दूध अच्छा होता है, सच्चा होता है, उसे फेंके ना, उसे बच्चे को जरूर पिलाएं। 3. बच्चे के 6 महीने का होने तक उसे सिर्फ माँ का दूध पिलाएं और कुछ भी नहीं, पानी भी नहीं। और 4. बच्चा जब 6 महीने का हो जाए तो 7वें महीने से स्तनपान के साथ साथ उसके पोषण का पूरा ध्यान रखा जाए। तो ये 4 बातें भूलिएगा नहीं। 4 बातों से नाता जोड़ो, कहो कुपोषण भारत छोड़ो।
मुझे पैसों की बहुत जरूरत है। इस गोल्ड ज्वेलरी के कितने पैसे मिल जाएंगे?
बहन जी, ये तो सब पीतल है।
What? अब मैं क्या करूं? अब मैं अपने बेटे का एडमिशन कैसे कराऊंगी?
अगर आपने सोने की ज्वेलरी खरीदते समय उस पर हॉलमार्क के 5 निशान देखे होते तो आज यूं निराश न होना पड़ता।
हॉलमार्क का निशान, शुद्धता की पहचान। जागो ग्राहक जागो।
माँ, हाँ? आप कुछ भूल रही हो। क्या भूल रही हो? आपने नल नहीं बंद किया। अरे ध्रुव।
क्या दीदी?
तुम कुछ भूल गए।
क्या दीदी?
तुमने जाने से पहले लाइट नहीं ऑफ की।
उतना ही इस्तेमाल करें जितने की आवश्यकता है। आने वाली पीढ़ी को उनकी सुविधाओं से वंचित न करें।
जागो ग्राहक जागो।
Welcome back to Insight. We are talking about the current slide of the Indian rupee. Right, Dr. Agarwal, we understand you were saying earlier that it is all the current slide of the Indian rupee is because FIIs have accelerated their pullout and also because of our mismanagement at the economic level, because of delayed reform, etc.
I just said that I did not say that it is the FDI and the FII alone, because it is only one component of the balance of payment which makes a difference. And it is making a difference because presently we do need that investment to push about a certain amount of growth, because our own industry is not bringing about the necessary investment. If you look at our own economy is not doing extremely well. I'm not saying it's in a precarious position. It is definitely not in a precarious position. Globally, we have had a lot of problems like the subprime crisis, the global financial crisis, because of which, you know, our banking industry is also affected. Right. Our manufacturing industry is affected. Our growth rates are affected. If you look at the June bulletin of RBI, you will see our exports to the Eurozone have been affected. So all these factors are definitely causing a problem. Another important aspect which has been highlighted is that our oil imports and the gold imports have been rising. The government has taken up a step of increasing the excise duty on the gold imports, but we have not been able to, you know, reduce them down. So all these make a difference. Another important aspect is where we were looking at a growth, which I mentioned last time also. We are looking at a 5% growth. People are not showing that growth. Another important aspect is we did see a lot of diaspora actually going and settling outside. They are not going outside and they're not settling outside, and they're not bringing in that much remittances as we were expecting. Though some of the reports show that the remittances in the Asian region have improved, but they are not improving because there has been an exodus of people who have been thrown out of whether it is US or UK because of their recessionary state. I'm again not saying that there has been a problem with our skill levels, but there is a problem associated there. So because of the global crisis and because of the internal problems, the rupee is likely to fall, but not to such a large extent. Another important point which I think the RBI lately has just banned some time back, about some 5 hours back or 6 hours back, they have banned the banks to bring about speculation, the forward markets. Now, as a result of the forward markets and a huge amount of investment going in the short-term investment and other things, what is happening is people, when they start believing that the rupee is sliding down, they continue to believe that it will continue to go down. And until and unless they see a push up, they are not willing to go about in a different stream. So that also makes a difference. Now, the RBI has banned banks to make an entry into those sectors of the forward markets. So that is also causing a problem. So now these factors coupled together let the rupee slide down.
But what is your analysis? Do you think that this downward slide is likely to continue, because we crossed the psychological 60 barrier some time back?
See, the resistance level has already been crossed. So, I believe it should not slide down. The RBI should definitely, bring in the dollars into the market. They are sitting on a good amount of reserve, and falling rupee will only deteriorate the position of the government in a very bad fashion. Whether it is with respect to fiscal deficits, whether it is with respect to the oil deficits, whether it is with respect to, let's say, inflation in the economy, because we are also importing inflation with the rupee sliding down. And because we have sufficient reserves and we have the potential to bring about a change in the direction, that change needs to be brought about, because if the change is not brought about, people will continue to think that the rupee is falling down. Recently there have been reports that most of the banks are saying that it is not 61 level, it should go further down. Now if you make these kind of statements, what will happen? Overall scenario at the larger level will assume that it should slide down. That should not be the case.
Okay, Mr. Guha, if we could talk about the steps the government is taking or could consider taking I understand there is talk of raising FDI caps in sectors such as defense, telecom. You think that will help if we could review our FDI limits in certain sectors?
Well, I think it would probably help if the government speeds up the policy. And why I say the economy is in a little precarious condition, I don't see any ray of hope in multiple areas. Let's talk about gold. The gold is one area many people are discussing, and I find it very funny that how could a new tax on gold could prevent me from buying gold. I mean, for generations Indians have spent on gold. Until May, even in May, our consumption of gold was almost like 162 tons. If you are trying to stop it by putting tax, you are essentially allowing the same 1970s Bombay stories of ships coming in and dhows coming in with gold and parking and anchoring near the Bombay coast. The scene has once again started. Maybe you will see it in the papers very soon. I think the government needs to take very, very proactive step. If you have formed a cabinet committee of infrastructure development, which was primarily meant to push all such projects, what has happened to that? You have to take clearances left, right and center, companies coming in, demanding things, and eventually even Indian companies, their projects are getting stuck. In the last about 7 or 8 months, the papers have been clamoring about the big relief that the Indian government has apparently given to Mukesh Ambani, the richest Indian, on this KG gas basin and the price. And we should analyze it by realizing what is the global price of gas and how much he is expecting. And what has happened as a result? Where is the investment in some of our key sectors? It has not happened. Some of the controversial deals like Augusta Westland helicopters and Tatra trucks has prevented the government to clear some of the big bucks investment in defense sector. Okay, let's come to agriculture sector. Where are the big investments? So you need those investments to come in, and once they come in, you need to clear them, put them on fast track. The fast track has actually to be a fast track. My other point, which I want to raise very strongly here, is the finance ministry and the RBI should not give contradictory statements. As a result, it impacts the rupee. I mean, every time the rupee falls, Indians become more poorer, India becomes poorer, because my purchasing power is going down. So if the RBI is in sync with what the finance ministry is doing, there are much better chances that certain things can be managed. But as of now, that is not happening. So these are my concerns. And I think these needs to be rectified, but unfortunately it has not been rectified, and it is impacting. It's impacting me heavily. Look at our GDP. Industrial growth only 2%. Trade deficit 7-month high. I mean, where are we heading? I mean, somewhere one has to realize the economy needs to perk up. And are we just hoping that next year is election and then everything will be all sorted out, more money will come in before the polls and things will be all right? It won't be.
Okay, Mr. Chawla, what do you think the RBI can do in such a scenario for the short term to revive the rupee? And also the question about investments, what is it that we can do to spur investments? Because whatever investment is coming, we are scaring them away because of the long gestation period that we take.
First things first, RBI has a limited role. We cannot depend only on, we cannot look only up to RBI to save us out or bail us out. As I said earlier, rupee slide is a factor of so many global factors, including the US economy strengthening again. These are short term things. Now, are we suggesting that India's story is over? No, I won't agree. Are we suggesting that everything is so bad, dismal? No, I won't agree. It is a situation which has emerged out of the global factors, as I suggested.
Right.
It is a situation as also emerged as it because there's a slowdown in the economy. Investment appetite is not there. People are not willing to take risk. Now you will ask me, then who will take the risk? I will suggest one thing, that PSUs are sitting on a huge cash piles, over 100,000 crores. They are sitting on a huge cash piles, huge piles. Why don't they take the lead? Because they are in the position to take the lead, take the risk, which the private sector would not like to do it. That is they can really, and once the cycle improves, then it feeds on itself. Even the positivity also feeds on itself, as the negativity does. So the RBI has a limited role because RBI has only one tool. It is sitting on close to $300 billion forex reserves, much less than that. There is a limit, because if you go on spending, as Dr. Yamini suggested, that they should come out, offload some dollars, but there is a limited way of it. I think what they should do is, they should come very heavily on the speculators who are having good times. They should also think, of course, some beginning has been made that the oil importing companies should be given some direct access to the forex.
Yeah, I was going to come to that.
So that there is not much of a speculation done, so the middle layers are removed. And once they send a message that we are going to deal very firmly with the speculators and those guys who are playing up and down the derivative market, the message will really go down well. These are short-term measures. In the long term, I'll tell you, even the US phenomenon, in the long term, if the till about some time ago, we were all crying the US economy is down, so we are bad. Now today you have a situation, very paradoxically, that you have a situation where US economy is trending, we are again feeling the pinch. Is it a paradox?
Right.
So in the long term, medium term, not even a medium term, if the US does well, eventually we do well, because our IT exports 67%, 60%.
Right.
Our IT exports are headed to US. Merchandise exports about 15 to 20% headed to US. If the US economy does, our internal demand will go.
Right.
I mean, the demand for our goods abroad will go. So it's a passing phase. I am not that pessimistic as if it's all going to end. No.
Okay, so you're optimistic that it's just a phase that is going to get over.
That's right.
Okay, Dr. Agarwal, a weak rupee is certainly going to make imports more expensive, but it is good for our exports. It should make our exports competitive. Has that happened?
See, never has the export market really always benefited from a falling rupee, primarily because we are very strongly competitive with the other Asian regions, and they also depreciate their currencies or provide for other benefits which do not provide enough market share to help the exporters in terms of increasing their profits. So it's not a very good idea. I would also like to suggest here, everybody saying that the rupee reflects that the Indian economy is not doing well. It is only one macroeconomic parameter. Yes, it does make a difference in terms of, what amount of imports we are making. It makes a difference in terms of how much inflation we'll be importing in the form of oil, or in terms of, let's say, what will be the market interest rates or other things, But it is not the sole and whole indicator of the economy. The economy is not doing extremely badly. It is doing well. With 5% growth rate, with all the other economies doing badly, we are not doing bad.
Okay.
Another important aspect is the different sectors have seen a setback. So when he said that the US was not doing well, we said we were not doing well because the banking industry, which channelizes a huge amount of credit to the economy, had to see a setback, had to see a large number of regulations. There were sectors like the real estate, which was doing extremely well. They are not doing well today. People were to invest into, let's say, as foreign investors were to be allowed into the retail investments and bring about the demand. But they don't see that happening. Okay. Though a lot of governments have taken up a lot of projects into the real estate market to provide, townships to people. But then we do see a slowing of the growth over there. If you see the recent, the statistics also, it says that the manufacturing sector is growing. So we are not in a very bad shape. It's not that the rupee is sliding down, so we are in a bad shape.
Okay.
There are short-term forward contracts and short-term positions which people are taking, which are right now adversely affecting the economy. And I do see a relationship between what is happening in terms of what the government is, specifying to the foreign investors, which is not allowing them to stand invested, besides their own economic problems or internal problems. So, and if you actually look at, different companies, you will also see different companies are wanting to come back to India and bring about investment. Maybe they are waiting for the election, policy to be out, because they know that elections is there in 2014 and they know there can be a change in the government, or maybe not even if a change, but a policy stance may change. So they don't just want to bring about their project. So there's a postponement of the projects also.
Okay.
So, you know, rupee sliding down does not anywhere, in my opinion, reflect that the economy or its people are doing badly.
Okay.
It definitely reflects that there is a cause for worry, which the government needs to take care of.
Okay.
And if it brings about dollars into the market or allows the rupee to float freely, it can help with that position.
All right, so we're saying a falling rupee does not necessarily mean that the economy is doing bad. It was doing bad, but there has been improvement on a lot of fronts. On that note, we take a break in the program. Stay with us. We'll be right back. When we come back, we discuss the implications of the falling rupee on the Indian economy.
चार बातों से नाता जोड़ो, कहो कुपोषण भारत छोड़ो। 1. गर्भवती को खाना अच्छा। 2. पहला गाढ़ा दूध है सच्चा। 3. 6 महीने सिर्फ स्तनपान। 4. फिर स्तनपान और पोषण का ध्यान।
जी हाँ, अपने बच्चों को कुपोषण से बचाना है तो ये 4 बातें जरूर याद रखें। 1. गर्भवती को खाना अच्छा। 2. पहला गाढ़ा दूध है सच्चा। 3. 6 महीने सिर्फ स्तनपान। और 4. फिर स्तनपान और पोषण का ध्यान। तो 4 बातों से नाता जोड़ो, कहो कुपोषण भारत छोड़ो।
श्यामू, देखो फिर आ रहा है, नया टीवी मांगेगा। मैं निकलता हूँ, तू टाल दियो।
जरा रुकिए।
हाँ बोलिए।
ये देखिए कंज्यूमर कोर्ट का फैसला।
ये कागज किसी और को दिखाना, इससे कुछ नहीं होगा।
अब जरूर होगा। अदालत का आदेश ना मानने पर तुम्हारे खिलाफ वारंट जारी हो सकता है।
तो क्या?
तो तुम्हें 3 वर्ष तक का कारावास या 10,000 रुपए तक का जुर्माना या दोनों हो सकते हैं। समझे?
समझ गया।
जागो ग्राहक जागो।
सोसाइटी में सबसे ज्यादा सर्विस टैक्स पे करने का अवार्ड जाता है मिस्टर दीवान को।
पापा, ये अवार्ड आपको क्यों नहीं मिला?
बेटा, ये अवार्ड आपके पापा को भी मिलेगा, क्योंकि अब सरकार लाई है वॉलंटरी कंप्लायंस एनकरेजमेंट स्कीम 2013।
इस योजना के तहत नॉन फाइलर, स्टॉप फाइलर और त्रुटिपूर्ण सेवा कर रिटर्न फाइल करने वाले 1 अक्टूबर 2007 से 31 दिसंबर 2012 तक के देय सेवा कर की सत्य घोषणा करके ब्याज, जुर्माना और अन्य कार्यवाहियों से छूट पा सकते हैं।
और हाँ, ये भुगतान 2 किस्तों में भी किया जा सकता है।
सेवा कर अदा करें, खुद पर गर्व करें।
कल मैं बड़ी मुश्किल में पड़ी जब प्रिया ने मुझे अपनी प्रॉब्लम बताई।
कल मैं अपनी गर्भ निरोधक गोली खाना भूल गई। मुन्नी अभी बहुत छोटी है, कोई रास्ता हो तो बताओ ना।
इस मुश्किल से निकलने का एक ही रास्ता है, इमरजेंसी कॉन्ट्रासेप्टिव पिल यानी ECP। अगर प्रिया की तरह आपसे भी ये भूल हो जाए तो 72 घंटे के अंदर ये गोली खा लें और बिल्कुल निश्चिंत हो जाए। लेकिन प्लीज याद रखिए कि ये नियमित गर्भ निरोधक उपाय नहीं है और बार बार लेने से हानिकारक हो सकती है।
अधिक जानकारी के लिए पास के सरकारी स्वास्थ्य केंद्र में संपर्क करें।
Welcome back to Inside. We are talking about the current slide of the rupee, which breached the 61 mark on Monday. Mr. Guhare, now that we have breached the 61 mark, what are the steps that you think the government can take in the short term?
Even the government doesn't want to take any step because it's tired of taking steps. But I'm not very pessimistic. Actually what has happened is, I think even the government also is essentially looking forward to the next quarter of a very good monsoon. If that happens, the rural economy will actually perk up and the agriculture sector will again really flourish. I don't see government taking any proactive steps over the next 1 month, because I think a lot of steps have been taken. The government will try and push Indians not to buy more gold.
Right.
But beyond that, I actually don't see government taking any more steps. But I think hopefully it might push a few more top big heavy investments off his shelves. The files should be cleared. Hopefully the dust will settle down on a few big investments Chidambaram is doing a number of road shows across the country, across the world. Sorry, he's been in
presently in the US.
Now he's going to the UAE. So he's trying very hard to try and get some people convinced. But as our co-speakers have said here, there is a bit of political uncertainty. Everybody is hoping to see what happens in 2014, which government comes to power, and what are the proactive steps it takes, and probably then bring in the investment. And as of now, whatever has come in the FII has been a very short term, and that has impacted our economy. But I guess I'm just looking forward to a good monsoon. I'm sincerely hoping, hopefully, the rural economy gets a serious boost, and things improve for me and the country a bit. But nothing beyond that. I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling the government is not going to take any more step in the next 1 month.
All right. Well, what about the RBI? Mr. Chawla says the RBI has a very limited role to play here.
The RBI, I mean, I second what he is saying. I don't think even the RBI, even Mr. Subbarao is going to make any more new announcement that tries and stimulates the rupee. I don't think so. I think they're all going to wait and watch. Let's see what monsoon brings to the country and how the rural economy opens up. And also, definitely they'll try and set clear the dust on a number of big investment, hopefully sending out a very strong signal, because I sincerely believe if somebody is going to the UAE to seek more money from primarily from sovereign funds, the Jet Etihad deal will definitely come up. As I mean, 15 years ago, if you're going to USA and if Enron is stuck, they would discuss that. It's almost like saying that if you're going to Korea, they'll always ask you why POSCO is stuck. So there are issues. I think the finance minister is trying very hard to resolve, but I don't see any steps happening over the next 1 month. No chance.
Mr. Chawla, there is also talk of the government issuing overseas bonds, for instance, which could help us raise dollars from overseas investors. Although here also there are risks involved. But do you see a scenario of this?
Well, there are confusing signals so far as this issue is concerned, because there was two kind of versions coming from the finance ministry. Well, so far as the bond issue is concerned, you might get the immediate supply of dollars, but then you are adding to the external debt.
Right.
So the external debt also remains one of the biggest issues structurally.
Right.
So it's a catch-22 situation where I mean you are borrowing. Now, at the end of the day, when you issue for overseas bonds, you are borrowing. So you are adding to the external debt, which is quite high.
Right.
It is not much beyond the comfort level at the moment. I think, to my mind, the answer lies in encouraging the remittances, not even the NRI deposits, because deposits are debt. There's a limit to which we can extend, but then we should also encourage, when Mr. Chidambaram goes abroad to woo the FDI, we should also try and humor our own diaspora, that because today our NRI friends are not limited to Mr. Savraj Pal and a few Hindujas. No, there are huge amount of brilliant professionals sitting on a huge cash pile. They want to look back and invest here. We should try and motivate them. Come home. There's a lot of opportunity here. India is a young country where there's a huge demand waiting for you. So I think we should encourage, like the Chinese have done it. We should encourage our NRI industrialists, people who are settled there, people who are doing well abroad. They should come back and invest in their homeland. Besides the foreign investors, the NRIs must come as investors. Besides the remittances. These bonds are only a short-term solution, which will add only to the external debt, which will again reflect on the overall state of the economy. I don't think it's going to really help structurally.
That will you're saying that will expose us to further risk.
More external debt, which is not a very healthy thing to do, because we are already, I think, much beyond the comfort level in so far as the external debt is concerned.
Right, Dr. Agarwal.
Well, I'd like to correct a few things. First of all, the government has taken up steps. I mean, I read reports some time back which talked about, offering a single window status for the oil companies to buy dollars. It also talked about the government not permitting the banks through the RBI for speculative positions. So the government is concerned about that. Another important aspect is that the government cannot, surpass the autonomy positions of certain organizations like the RBI itself. So it cannot tell the RBI to raise interest rates or to reduce down the interest rates. They have been asking for an easing of the monetary policy, which has not taken place because the RBI is also trying to take control over the inflation. So as far as the government is concerned, it is taking steps. But obviously, one of the biggest step would be that the RBI actually allows the rupee to float freely and not worry about the reserve positions, because we are sitting on a good reserve position. We don't have to worry on that. We also need to take care of the current account deficits. Now, you have been talking about, every time rupee depreciates, exports should actually improve. To your own self, if you look at the RBI bulletin, it says the exports have not improved. However, the imports have risen by 9.4% in the months of April itself. So as a matter of fact, depreciating rupee is not good for anyone in the economy. So as long as it is allowed to be appreciated, it will prove to be beneficial for all of us. Some people say with the depreciation, we have been seeing a lot of NRI remittances, which he also said we should allow them. That is also not going to happen, because they will see a net overall return onto their investments, which may, yes, at the moment look lucrative, but at the end, why is the rupee sliding? Am I looking at a growth? Is there something wrong in the economy? These kind of questions do come into the mind of the investor. So if the rupee keeps sliding down, it will be not a very good thing. What the government needs to do is, it needs to allow the rupee to float freely.
Okay. Mr. Guhare, what about the question of dollars for oil bonds? Because we understand the RBI has been having meetings with representatives of oil marketing companies, encouraging them to buy dollars. Do you think that's a good idea?
And how is it going to help them? Oil marketing companies are completely reeling under a huge deficit because of the government's own policies. Global oil prices have not fallen. So in what way the oil company will benefit? I don't see any reason. These are government policies. I mean, you can have multiple options, but if there is a lethargy in announcing, making some very strict decisions about oil and gas, look at our kerosene. 40% of that is today smuggled outside the country. Today the diesel, now we are starting putting more money on diesel and trying to increase its price. Bulk of that, it's used for fertilizer, it's used for the agriculture sector, but again from there they don't use it. I mean, there have to be checks and balances. I think what the government actually needs to do is try to put in place a number of measures that actually boost the economy. Now, what are those? Let's say fertilizers. You try and see if we can do some huge domestic production of fertilizer rather than depending on imports. Try and push a labor intensive kind of an export to global markets. Try and see if you can do a direct swap deal with China, our next door neighbor. These kind of things, if you try and push in, hopefully the economy gets a stimulus and things improve. But that the government has to do. The government has to push those companies to try and see how many more people. I think couple of issues government has tackled. I'm not saying, I'm not a very pessimistic person. I'm not saying the government has done nothing. Even in the recent Saudi Arabia, where there's a huge large chunk of labor force, there were threats of their coming back. The government has been able to convince the Saudi Arabian government to hold on to their decisions, so that the Indians, a large chunk of Indians working there, sending remittances back home, could stay for another 3 months before a final call is taken. So that's what I'm saying. You need to push a few sectors that can actually benefit. Fertilizers, labor intensive exports, do a direct swap in terms of your dealings with China, in terms of your monetary policy with China. I mean, I think those are measures the government can take. It's up to the government to take those measures, but I think that's kind of a role I see the government trying and doing. Single window clearance, committee for fast track investment, and all of that. I've heard all of that. I've heard issues that the government is putting a tax on gold imports. That I don't think that's going to work, because Indians by nature for generations have bought gold, because that is the safest investment in a country where less than 5% of its population puts money into the stock market, and they have relied on traditional instruments like life insurance, saving bank account. It's very difficult for Indians to slowly change their mindset and take larger risks. They're not going to take that. But if government takes these measures which I just listed, hopefully things could turn around. I mean, I think we have to look for newer markets. That is also another problem the Indian government has. Indian companies have. Why blame the government? Indian companies have. We have not looked for new markets. We have not been aggressive. Some of the biggest PSUs, if you have noticed, in the last 1 week itself, have lost out to Chinese company in acquiring some of the world's largest oil and gas reserves in Kazakhstan, in Tajikistan, in Nigeria, in Angola. Now, these are things which companies need to do. They have to be proactive and try and go out in the market and capture new ground. I mean, you can't blame the government and can't wait for government benefits and government push for everything. Even PSUs, they need to do all of this. Prakash just said that sitting on a huge cash pile, where have they invested? They haven't, which is the new coal mine Coal India has found. And let's not forget, when it went to the market, the amount of money they picked up.
Right.
So.
All right, now let's focus on the implications for the economy. Mr. Chawla, what do you think are going to be the implications in the short term as well as the long term, because the depreciating rupee is going to be damaging for the economy?
In the short term, inflation immediate. I mean, let's talk about the common man point of view, because having discussed macro a bit, now let's come to the brass tacks.
Right.
Let's discuss the impact of the rupee on you and me and our kids. And you know, we are going to import inflation. We are going to see more of hike in diesel prices, oil prices. This is a short-term impact of the implications of rupee slide. Our kitchen price is going to go up. Prices of consumer durables going to go up. Vegetable prices, of course, because of transportation involved, going to go up. Traveling abroad going to be restricted. Education abroad going to be costing much more. So the common life, there is a very strange situation that happened, and it's something we can't do much about it. Today, an action taken by Federal Reserve impacts a man in Moradabad.
Right.
A person, a street hawker in Visakhapatnam. A Federal Reserve action directly impacts him.
Okay, how it affects you and I will continue our discussion on the other side when we come back with the final segment of the show. Stay with us.
ओफो, गैस खत्म हो गई।
इतनी जल्दी? सिलेंडर तोल कर तो लिया था ना?
हर बार लेती हूँ।
खाली सिलेंडर तोला था?
खाली सिलेंडर?
देखो, सभी सिलेंडरों पर गैस का वजन, खाली सिलेंडर का वजन और कुल वजन छपा होता है। यदि खाली सिलेंडर का वजन छपे हुए वजन से ज्यादा है, तो इसका मतलब सिलेंडर में गैस के साथ पानी मिला हुआ है।
यानी गैस कम?
बिल्कुल, इसीलिए सिलेंडर लेते और देते समय अवश्य तोलना चाहिए।
सही वजन हमारा अधिकार।
जागो ग्राहक जागो।
Welcome back to Insight. We are talking about the decline of the Indian currency against the dollar and its implications on the economy. Okay, Dr. Yamini, let's begin with the implications of the common man. As Mr. Chawla said, if you could take it further, a falling rupee means costlier imports, which could fuel inflation, and that also makes a rate cut by the RBI difficult.
Yes, as he correctly said, that it is importing inflation by way of actually the oil imports, if we are talking about, and the government has been lately talking about increasing the oil prices also. They have been also talking about hiking the diesel prices. There has been a talk about the natural gas prices going up. So inflation is likely to go up in this case. Another problem is that the oil companies are asking for oil subsidy more because they are facing losses. So the government's fiscal deficit consolidation plan, which P. Chidambaram had actually laid out for the next 5 years, gets into trouble because of this depreciating rupee. So automatically, because the fiscal deficits would rise and because the oil imports would be high, there would be a huge amount of inflation, and it would get translated into food prices, it would get translated into, let's say, our other consumable items. Another important aspect is investments. If you remember, when we were at 8 to 9% of GDP, a lot of MNCs in India, which were doing extremely well and were booking good profits, they were going abroad and making investment. That investment becomes expensive for us. Another important thing which actually happens is all those people who are also, again, I had mentioned, those who are investing into India also become skeptical about investing into India. Another important aspect which I feel that the depreciating rupee will bring about is in terms of the overall growth parameters, like the fiscal deficits going up, the CAD going up, our reserves showing a good position, still our macroeconomic stability not giving us a right indicator. What I believe is the government should do is it should pump in or give about an investment plan for the industry today. As I had mentioned, that our industry, which is the Indian industry, which is very rich, which is good and hardworking, is not getting enough incentives to bring about investments into the economy to push the necessary growth rate from 5% to 8%, which is very important. Another important aspect is we have been bringing about the services sector into the tax net. We've been believing that it's doing very well, but they were one of the export earners for us.
Okay.
And that has hit back the government. If the government continues to have a huge amount of fiscal deficits, I fear that, you know, besides the inflation as one of the biggest tax to the common man, another important problem would be the tax. The government might introduce more taxes and may increase the tax rates for the common man, which will again hit the industry very badly. The banks should also provide the necessary help to the industry and to the common people to bring about the necessary growth. The banks have pulled out of the economy because they fear that the economy is not doing well. There are a lot of amount of money that is stuck into the real estate, so they're not giving the necessary loans, whether it is the industry, whether it is the agriculture sector, or whether it is the services sector, or whether it is even the consumer sector. So I believe if all the industries come together and the government brings about an investment initiative into the country, then the sliding rupee will automatically go out.
Right. So, Mr. Guhare, would you agree with Dr. Agarwal? What
Absolutely,
we need perhaps
100%.
is a roadmap for to
the
give a
roadmap,
push to the
exactly, the roadmap has to be of the domestic industrial policy. That needs to be boosted. It has always, the imports have happened only because India's domestic industrial policy was at its worst. We have directly encouraged all these imports. Look at pulses. 60% of pulses today India imports from Canada, where Canada, that particular pulse in Canada is essentially chicken feed. It's called the chickpea, which we import here, and now they are pressurizing that we should now put this particular category of pulse into the public distribution system. I'm just citing one example. I can cite 100 examples. India, as Mr. Nayan had written in Business Standard, has already missed the bus for garment exports. China, Turkey, Vietnam, they have gone far ahead. But now there is a huge chunk in China where the wages are rising. So India could possibly take that advantage. Now who pushes this agenda down people's throat? That's the government can do that. So if the domestic policy is perked up and things as essential as edible oils, pulses, our own oil and all of that, their production starts increasing, fabrics, gems and jewelry, auto processing industry, all of that, the domestic economy gets a boost. The dependence on import comes down and we are in a much more safer zone. I can guarantee you one thing, the number of depreciation of the rupee and all of the road shows you do, it won't have any impact if the domestic industrial policy is in a bad zone.
Right.
And as a result of which these problems continue to happen, we import a lot, we export less, and of course there is a huge gap and that keeps increasing. And what is irony is, it was the government, I think in the year 2011, had brought out this white paper on boosting the economy. 2 years have passed, nothing has happened. The government continues to talk of multiple issues like drop in interest rates, trying to create more bonds, gold bonds, trying to get the NRIs to put in more money and all of that. I think the domestic industrial policy needs to be boosted, and that is the way forward.
Okay, Mr. Chawla, clearly we cannot control global factors, but domestically we can, come up with a roadmap. We can bring down our dependence on capital inflows to address our current account deficit and address our widening trade deficit.
No, as I suggested earlier, that there are the issues which Shantanu suggested are the long term in nature. It will take time before they materialize. So you cannot expect the impact to be seen maybe, but the signals can go. If you will, that you need to really send signals that we mean business. The problem today is that somebody has to take a lead. We are in a bad situation. Somebody has to take a lead. I think the lead has to be again taken by the government. But then what way? What is it the government can do? As I suggested earlier, the PSUs can be a great vehicle for reviving the investment. I have less of optimism in so far as the domestic. If I expect domestic industry to come back to investment zone immediately, it will not happen because their balance sheets are hugely leveraged. What I mean is that they are debt ridden. Today, their priority for them is to reduce debt, not to go in for fresh investment. How can you expect, say, telecom? I mean, people who are in they are sitting on a debt pile of 60,000 crores. One company, another company 30,000 crores. For instance, steel is a mess. One big steel maker is sitting on a debt of 30,000 crores. Do you expect them to make investment? They will not. However much you blame the government or to the industry, they will not. But who can do it? The PSUs can do it. They can take a lead.
I'd like to take a change on that because, you know, if you look at the balance sheets of 1,000 top Indian companies, the balance sheets have more of equity than of debt. And as far as if you look at their investment profile, till 2 years back, they were willing to bring about a large number of ADRs and GDRs. I'm not talking about ECBs here. I'm talking about ADRs and GDRs for bringing about investment.
But things have changed
just a second, sir. Another important aspect which I would also like to say is if you look at the PSU units and if you look at their investment profiles, large number of PSU units, even Coal India, are going outside and trying and looking in for investment opportunities. Like Coal India was going in for Australian, I'm not too sure on that, but Australian or other regions for bringing about their investment. So they are looking, and when they have a lot of money, they will bring about investment. And if rupee keeps sliding down, they can't bring about investment. Domestically, the Indian economy is very strong in its own domestic demand, whether it is for food, whether it is for consumable items, or whether it is for anything else. Pockets are not short, as a matter of fact, people have money, but the necessary push or the investment is not there to be focused around. We have not in the past given any, if you look at budgets in the past, we have been talking about the social sector. I'm not denying that we don't need to look at the social sector or the human development aspect. We need to, but we need to give the necessary incentives to the industry to grow and provide employment and growth in the economy.
Again, you're talking about giving impetus, further impetus to investment. Okay, we've reached the end of the program, but I'd like your final comments, starting with you, Mr. Guhare. How do you see this scenario in the dollars continue to be stronger against the rupee?
Hopefully, I see the situation continuing definitely till September, because that's what indications are coming from all over the world that US will continue its push. The rupee slides further, it will impact our imports severely. I don't know what all sectors of exports where we can earn more. We haven't been exporting too much of products. Whatever we are, maybe gems and jewelry, a bit of fabric, a bit of auto processing industry, pharma, and a couple of stuff, and IT sector. I think the need is essentially on two prongs. First, we need to find new areas of investment, like labor intensive exports and stuff like that, and a very strong domestic industrial policy. If this two-prong approach can be handled well, and then it will ease pressures on both the RBI and the finance ministry on issues like this. But that needs to happen.
All right, Mr. Chawla, what do you think? The rupee is going to remain weak in the days to come?
In the days to come, yes, but I'm sure in a couple of weeks. I'm not a crystal ball gazer, but in a couple of weeks, situation will stabilize.
Because we've had a stronger than expected US jobs data, and which confirms speculation
I'm
that
not pessimistic. It's not going to be that bad. I'm sure, because some hiccups are there, jugs are there, and we are going to see it through.
Okay, and Dr. Agarwal, quick
I'm
word
hoping
from
that the rupee would appreciate if the RBI gives the necessary right signals to the economy and allows it to appreciate them.
All right, on that note, it's time for me to wrap up the discussion here. I'd like to thank all my guests for coming to the studios. It was a pleasure having you all here. That's it for now in this edition of Insight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.
The office of the Lok Sabha Speaker is the prime position in India's parliamentary democracy. One such person who adorned this